Hey guys, it's Upa here. So today I don't really have much to talk about, and rather I'm just kind of showing off something which is pretty rare, but very proud of myself for finally completing this, and that is Faction Abyss. Today I finally managed to get 1170 stars in Faction Abyss, and at the same time I've also managed to complete my exclusive 5 Agatha, so because of that I'm actually now using her in this HP deduction team which I've just managed to complete with after getting Hanya as well. And I believe this is the team Invu uses, and I know he's had a lot of success with it. I still have to improve the stats for these 3 characters in particular, my Hanya, Ans, and Agatha, but even at the stats it is now, which isn't the best, I actually have been testing it in Advanced Arena, Championship, and War of Thrones, and it's been working pretty well so far. So I'm very happy with that. But anyway, I don't really have much else to talk about, but I guess I'll just go one by one and show the different teams I use. So first of all, of course, I've had the luxury of using Unicorn Pet, which in many ways is kind of like a cheat code for Faction Abyss. Of course, damage-wise it doesn't really help, but when it comes to survivability, it is very useful. That being said, Unicorn Pet alone isn't enough to give you the survivability needed for the higher stages. This is something which I experienced firsthand throughout many different of the factions, and because of that I had to build either more than one shielder if the shielders wasn't good enough, or I'll have to gear in certain ways specifically, which I'll of course talk about. So this is the team I use for Dragon Tribe stage 30, and for a lot of these factions I actually ended up building characters without increasing their skills. So I believe for Hazuncha you can see he doesn't have skills. And the reason why I had to build some of these characters is just simply to get enough damage to complete the boss within 20 turns in some factions where I'm not lacking the survivability. So in this case I'm doing fine for survivability. I have Santa who's good, and I have Panda as well, and then the rest of the damage is mainly from Willa and Hazuncha. So one thing I realized, and this applies across all the different factions, is you actually kind of have to gear towards survivability for some of your characters rather than damage. So, for instance, maybe not in this one, I didn't struggle too much for this one, but later on, I'll give some examples. But for example, a character like Lance, right? Lance, you normally want to build full attack, full mastery, and you don't really care about the speed. But what I've noticed, because the boss actually does a bunch of damage, even with defensive tools like Unicorn Pet and some other defensive shielders, for me, in my experience, personally, I actually had to build a decent amount of HP on these damage dealers, because I know that the limiting factor isn't the damage, right? I could have a weak build on a character like Lance and I still would be able to clear the stage within 20 turns, but even with several different defensive tools, he does need survivability to continue staying alive. So for some damage dealers across the different factions, I did actually have to have a bigger focus on giving them more health. And I did that primarily by just simply giving them something like Irato's Echo, which gives 64% HP rate, so that's an easy way for me to do it. So this is what I use for Dragon Tribe. This one was one of the later ones I did, even though it wasn't too difficult. Maybe it was like the second half or among the last 5 tribes for me to complete. We have Sword Harbor here. So Sword Harbor, you can see I'm actually lacking a damage dealer. I don't have one at all. Previously, in the earlier stages, I think I completed it with Luz over here up to maybe around 26, 27, but after that I regressed him because he is a bad character, and I was thinking that I may actually struggle with damage, and I was considering getting someone like Donald Rebelli, who I thought would be useful, but I was talking to other players and they actually said Donald Rebelli is pretty bad. Someone who with Donald Rebelli exclusive 4 said the damage isn't even close to being able to complete this in 30 turns. So instead I ended up using Marvilla E1, and I actually tried using this because of Sandcaster. So he's a somewhat new player, but he's very strong. He's already completed Faction Abyss before me as well, and he suggested he use exclusive 2 or 3 Marvilla, and said that it actually worked pretty well. So I was quite surprised because Marvilla is a support, right? And there isn't really any skills here in particular which like increases, or she does have some skills like this Energize and all that to increase her damage, but that applies to the whole team, and there isn't anything in particular for herself which lets her shine as a damage dealer. But I guess coupled with the fact that she has the HB burn, which actually does good damage even simply by applying the effect, and I honestly I don't really know how, because I did just use the skip function, but Marvilla, even an exclusive 1, was a really good damage dealer for Faction Abyss, and it worked really well. So credits to him, thanks for this advice. And yeah, if you guys are stuck here in terms of damage, you can give Marvilla exclusive 1 a shot. You can see over here that even though I gave her her emblems, I actually didn't even level up her skills, and even then, that was enough for me to complete Sword Harbor Guards at stage 30. Then we have Foresters. Foresters was one I was stuck at stage 30 for a long time. I could complete 29 at an early stage, but 30 was a bit tricky, and that was because I was struggling with survivability. So you can see initially I was using these 3 characters, and one thing about Unicorn Pet is that it's much stronger when you have more characters, because that allows you to take more turns before the boss does and trigger his healing and different effects, right? But so 3 characters is not very strong. And then I managed to get Kalana fairly recently, and at exclusive 0, it was just enough for me to have the survivability I needed to complete stage 30. We have Sunset Sages. This was, I think, either the second last or third last one that I completed, and I was at stage 29 for a while. But this one was kind of a different story because I actually could complete it without making any upgrades. I just had to properly gear my characters. You can see for some factions I actually built epics, such as Porter over here. Some of the epics are pretty useful to give you that additional survivability boost that you may require, and that's what you see here. Porter was my only shielder. What's his name? Marmello gives a little bit of shields, but not that much. And so what I did for this faction to give me the survivability I needed was I actually gave Nita a lot of health. So normally these 3 characters by default with a lot of health. Marmello being a HP burner, you want to build health. Apsara also, if you use her in PvP, you want a lot of health and speed on her. And Porter as a shielder, of course you want a lot of health. But Nita, normally you don't build health on her, but she kept dying, and because she kept dying, I didn't have enough damage to kill the boss. So I gave her maybe like 700,000 health around there, and I tried to give her as much mastery and attack as I could, and it managed to work out. Now Doom Legion, this is probably one of the easiest one if you have Giselle at exclusive 3. She alone can solo Faction Abyss and 3-star as well, you can see, done within 12 turns, so that just shows how insane of a character she is. And before getting Giselle, I mean, look at my other options I have for Doom Legion. Absolutely none, right? I don't even have Chelsea at exclusive 3, so Giselle exclusive 3 is a complete cheat code for Doom Legion. Then we have Holy Light Parliament. This was maybe the first or second one I completed. It's between Holy Light Parliament and Sagacity Alliance. And I mean, the tools you have for this is so strong. So, I mean, I completed with Nordek and Lance back in the day, before I had exclusive 3 Marie, and of course now with exclusive 3 Marie, it's so much easier, right? So this is a really easy one if you have the good characters. We'll talk about Forgotten last, because that's the one which I completed last. Next we have Eternal Sec. Eternal Sec actually was surprisingly easier, much easier than I expected, and over here, my Mamuk isn't even skilled. So obviously, my gears, he doesn't have gears now, but when I do the factions, I do gear them properly most of the time. And you can see once again, Mamuk isn't even skilled, he was here for a little bit of survivability. And what really impressed me was Agatha. So Agatha at exclusive 4 was able to help complete this Faction Abyss, of course alongside some extra help and pet as well. And yeah, I was surprised at the damage that she does, and she also gives herself some good survivability as well. So I was really surprised, and I think normally Eternal Sec is one of the harder factions to complete, so being able to complete it with Agatha was really nice. Then we had Nameless Brotherhood. This was one that I was planning or expecting to be stuck at for a long time, but I got really lucky because we ended up getting Felicia as the limited time hero, and of course she's Nameless Brotherhood faction. So before then, I think I did this in the video where I showed Felicia at different exclusives. Before Felicia came out, I think I was stuck at stage 26 or 25, and then by slowly leveling Felicia's exclusives, I could slowly clear the rest of these stages, and now I can clear stage 30 with Felicia. So this was really nice. Before Felicia came out, I was planning to do it with like Bobo and Anhijin and Magdi, and I don't think this would have worked because I don't have the exclusives needed to get good damage out of these HP burn characters. Maybe it could have worked, I'm not really sure, but having Felicia made it so much easier. Then we had Wizard's Eye. Wizard's Eye was one which I was stuck at for a long time, so I think I was stuck at stage 26, and primarily that was because I only had these 3 characters, and Lydia, especially at exclusive 0, isn't going to cut it for damage. So what I did, because I wanted to complete this faction, was I simply took Melchior and I got him to exclusive 3, and once I did that, it was actually really easy. Melkio's damage is actually surprisingly solid, and yeah, I don't plan on using Melkio anywhere, so when I did select him, I was kind of planning to convert him using the free conversion stone to the new mythic when it comes out, which should be later this month. But of course, that depends on how strong the new mythic will end up being. If it's not strong, then I wouldn't bother converting it. But yeah, Melkio is a pretty solid option. Surprised me well. I know he's pretty good in PvP, especially as a budget option, but his PvE damage was surprisingly solid as well. Now, well, just today, I actually got Bill, and I mean, I guess if I couldn't beat him in Melkio, I probably could have beaten him Bill, because Bill at exclusive 3 actually does, or I expect it to do some good damage because he does a lot of pursuit and attacks, but I guess we'll never find out, or maybe we'll test it when I end up building him, but I'm really low on resources, so we'll have to wait for that to happen. So next we have Hidden Wave. Hidden Wave was one which I was stuck at 27 for a long time, I remember. Irato was the first limited time hero at exclusive 3 that I got, and yeah, I was just stuck here because I didn't have the survivability needed. So I can't remember when I ended up managing to beat this boss at stage 30. It was definitely before I got Unicorn Pet, but I can't remember when. But yeah, it was definitely because I had these 3 characters over here. I built Olivia specifically for this boss, and to be honest, I wasn't really, and still am not really impressed with Olivia's skills, even as a defensive character. Her shield is really low, even when it's compared to other shielders. So let's see, her shield is 20%, and you can't increase it using her exclusives. Most of the shielders like Wim, I think it starts at 20%, but from exclusives you can get it to like 40%. But that's not the case for Olivia. I mean, she gives some defense up, but to be honest, I'm not a fan of her character at all, but I guess it was what I needed to complete this faction. Then Sagacity Alliance, I think this was probably the first one I completed, and this is simply because this faction is so stacked. I mean, you can see over here, but what are the options we have, right? Dianmu Indra, Shaorun, Murongjing, Sun Wukong, and Faxian, and many other strong characters. I mean, let's just take a look at Sagacity Alliance. This is probably the second strongest faction in the game after Unruly Outlaws now. Or maybe third after Holy Light Parliament, since Holy Light Parliament has some really, really strong characters as well. But yeah, Sagacity Alliance, one of the stronger factions in the game, and this team, I mean, it's pretty easy. I'm pretty sure if Murongjing at exclusive 3, you can solo the entire faction as well. But yeah, pretty easy, and this one I didn't have to give much thought. You can see that the auto select actually uses this Fire T-Lim pet, which is the one they give you for free, and that's because I haven't had to change the team since completing it, which was so long ago when I was using Fire T-Lim. And then second last, we have Unruly Outlaws. So Unruly Outlaws, if you didn't know, is actually considerably more difficult than all other factions. So I think you can see from the levels itself. So if we take a look at maybe like level 6, you can see over here that the minions are level 1 to 5. And maybe let's see level 1 and level 30 as well, right? For the non-Unruly Outlaws one. So level 1, level 100 enemies, and then we go to level 6, 1 to 5, and then at level 30, 360, right? So if we take a look at Unruly Outlaws, I'm pretty sure we'll see that it's a lot higher. So level 1, which was 100 previously, now starts at 200. Level 6, which was 1 to 5, is now 2 to 5. And level 30 is just way higher at 460. So this entire faction is really difficult, and you need a really solid team in order to beat it, and this is the team that I use for mine. So we have Hart, Sotra, Nicolith, Penny, and Jocelyn. I did do some trial and error, and me using Ants and Hane over here, and yeah, didn't actually work. Like, replacing any of these characters for whatever reason wasn't better. I don't know, because I just used the skip function, but yeah, this was the team which helped me beat it. And I mean, my builds across these characters are, I won't say solid because I don't regear them. Yeah, so like, I mean, you can see this Sotra build's horrible, but I don't regear her. But yeah, even then, I mean, these are 5 very solid characters. Three of them are like amazing. Sotra is also really, really good. Hart is the only character which you can really consider weak, but in this scenario specifically, he's still also pretty strong. So yeah, just a really, really difficult faction. This would have been much easier if I had a character like Reina or perhaps Elise, but I don't have either, so maybe it was more difficult than it should have been otherwise. And lastly, let's talk about Forgotten. So Forgotten is definitely the hardest faction by far in my opinion, and I only managed to beat it because I managed to get Vasily over here. So Vasily helps a long way in terms of damage. He's really, really useful in that regard. And without him, you are really limited with the options that you can use. So let's see the faction and the heroes that they have. So until Vasily, which released quite recently, you don't really have any damaging options over here. The best damaging options maybe is something like Valentina, who will require a higher exclusive. I have an exclusive 3 and I felt her damage was like pretty bad even then. We have Chardonnel, whose damage which scales off his defense is actually surprisingly decent, but it's only a single target. And I mean, you can't use him alone just for damage, right? And then besides that, if we take a look at what other players were using the recommended heroes function, we can see what other players use for their damage dealers, and it's all really strange options. So, okay, Advantix over here, he has Vasily, so maybe not the best one to look at, but okay, like this, right? So this guy's using, I mean, Tuck is a defensive hero, okay, but many players use Esther. Esther will give you a little bit more damage because she supports and increases your team's damage in different ways. And okay, yeah, so a lot of people using Tuck for defensive capabilities. You see Gramdy as well, but basically what I'm trying to show is that there are people are using characters which are like so weird, right? Characters which like you normally wouldn't see people use otherwise. Of course, some of these recommendations are a bit contaminated with Vasily now. I'm trying to find examples where people don't use Vasily, but yeah. I mean, the damage in this faction is really hard to obtain. Most people seem to require using Esther if they don't have Vasily alongside one other damage dealer. And not just damage is an issue, survivability is too. So in my instance, you can see I was using Chardonnel and Ya, and those two shielders alone alongside Unicorn Pet was not enough to give me the survivability I needed. So once again, like I mentioned at the start, I had to give my Valentina and my Vasily quite a bit of health to make sure they survive. And if you don't want to do that, then you'll see that most players will end up using characters like Atkins. And if you don't have Atkins, then that's where you see players build other heroes, which we saw like Tuck and Gramdy as well, right? So yeah, I mean, there's just very few good options in this faction, and there's no doubt in my mind that this is the hardest one to complete. And of course, once I got Vasily, I got the damage that was needed to beat the boss, and then survivability is just something I can fix by building health. But for an average player, especially if you don't have the Unicorn Pet, this is going to be definitely a major place that you're going to get stuck at. Even if you have Vasily, then you need the defensive options. You need like a Atkins or something if you don't have Unicorn Pet. So this was a really tough one, and I mean, that's the reason why this was the final one, which I completed just today. So yeah, I'm really happy that I don't have to think about Faction Abyss anymore, and I can just farm whichever stage I want. You know, I've been trying to complete Faction Abyss for a long time now. It's a personal goal of mine, and yeah, now that I've finally done it, I can just wait for the next faction and complete it when it's out. So yeah, one other reason, just before we end, that I was so I guess concerned or why I wanted to complete Faction Abyss so much is because I wanted to do it before the new faction comes out, which we are expecting later this year. And that's because, you know, when the new faction comes out, they'll increase this requirement for E5 Agatha, which I wanted to use for my HP deduction team. So yeah, I was somewhat in a rush to do it, but I managed to complete it quite ahead of schedule, and yeah, I'm happy that I did. So yeah, that's all we have for this video, and I mean, not really educational, which like some of my other videos I tried to make it, but yeah, just wanted to show this achievement that I did. I'm very happy with it, and yeah, that's all I have for today. I'll see you guys next time.